So we want to be able to draw angles in what we considered standard position. And so I have a variety of problems here that we want to be able to draw. And one thing we need to first discuss is what does it mean to be a coterminal angle? So we have this word here, coterminal, and what it means to be a coterminal angle is an angle or angles that have the same initial and terminal side. So coterminal angles have the same initial and terminal sides. And that's important because there are an infinite number of angles that we can create by moving around the circle and terminating in different areas. So we can rotate around in more than one direction, and we can rotate more than once. So one rotation is going to either be between 0 and 360 or 0 and negative 360. And so I'm going to put that up here. All right, so one rotation, right, is, or somewhere around a unit circle, is somewhere between 0 degrees and 360 degrees if I'm moving in a positive direction, or we could go from 0 degrees and negative 360 if we want to move in a negative direction. And so oftentimes to be able to see where we terminate, if it's a number that is larger than in this range of positive 360 or negative 360, again, we need to kind of unwind to see how many rotations there really was and then see where we terminate. So 145 degrees, again, if this is my 0 degrees and this is 180, all right, we can kind of label different areas of this axis to see where 45 or 145 would terminate. So again, right about here is about 135, and so we're going to say it appears to be just approximately right here. All right, so again, the initial side of my angle is always starting at 0 degrees. This would be my terminal side, but to draw an angle in standard position, we also need to use this little mark here to show which angle we're referring to. Because it's not enough to just show the initial and terminal side when I could also move around this direction. And so that's going to give me information also about a coterminal angle. So a coterminal angle would be, what if I wanted to refer to moving in a negative direction? So for example, say I start here at 0, but I move in a negative direction, and I want to still terminate at that position. So let's call that angle beta. And I say, well, this angle that has this initial side can move in the negative direction and terminate in the same place. And so that is considered a coterminal angle. And so often what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to say, how am I going to figure out that degree measurement? So if we moved from here and we went in a negative direction, one full rotation, that would be a negative 360 degrees. So what I would want to do is then kind of backtrack this 145 to kind of like get to where I need to be. And so I'm going to do that. All right. I'm going to say, let's see if I can find a good place for this. I'm going to say my angle here, let's see if we can see this. Say I go negative 360. All right, again, that's going to give me going backwards one full rotation. Right? And so that would go all the way to the line, but then I got to backtrack. So I need to re-add that 145. And so a coterminal angle would be this negative 215 degrees would be a coterminal angle to the one that I'm currently at. So let me get a different pen because mine's running out. Here we go. So I could go in a negative direction, 215 degrees, to get a coterminal angle. So that is one angle that's coterminal. it's not the only angle that's coterminal because, again, I could move around and keep going around and around the circle and terminate in the same place and have a really large degree measurement. But this is, my negative, one possible coterminal angle. So let's look at some others. So this is considered what we call a negative coterminal because I went in the opposite direction, or a negative direction. So let's look at negative 230 degrees. Again, this is 0 degrees. And if I move negatively, this would be negative 90 degrees, negative 180 degrees, negative 270 degrees. And so going in a negative direction, those would be the same degree measurements as what I had if I was thinking about moving in a positive direction. All right, going 1/4 of the way up in a positive is 90, so going 1/4 of the way down is negative 90. So if I'm moving in a negative direction, I can see that negative 230, again, is somewhere around here. All right, so again, here's my initial and my terminal sides. And so this would be the angle that I am referring to. And so I want to, again, find a coterminal angle to the one that I currently have. All right, so maybe I want to, again, let's just refer to this angle. What if I moved in the positive direction and I talked about just that angle? All right, so again, think about what that would look like. All right, again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's move around in the positive direction, 360 degrees, but then subtract off that 230. And that's going to give me the difference right here between my two angles. So this angle beta is the same thing as a positive 130 degrees. So what we would say then is that 130 degrees is coterminal with negative 230 degrees. They start and stop in the same place. Right? So let's look at this negative 390, because this is more than one rotation. All right? If I, again, were to think about going from 0 degrees and moving around my units, or my graph here, my unit circle, all right, this would get me to a negative 360 degrees. And so that negative 395, that's going around the circle once and then continuing just a little bit more. And so the difference between 395 and 360 is 35 degrees. And so what that means is that I went around and then I kind of went just a little bit farther. And that would be my terminal angle right here. All right. So this would be my angle in standard form, where I've moved around in a negative direction 360 and then a little bit extra. All right. So there are a variety of ways that we could look at coterminal angles. All right. One way would be to figure out what is just this angle. What if I just go from 0 to right here? And so that would be the difference between the negative 395 and the negative 360. So that little tiny piece right here is just the difference. So if I take 395 and subtract off the 360, this little tiny angle right here, if I just went straight down to it, so instead of going around in a circle and then going farther, what if I just went straight there? Well, this little angle beta right here would just be in a negative direction, 35 degrees. All right, so that's one way of being able to get there, is being able to say, it's kind of like running around the building. Instead of going around the building to meet me somewhere, you're just going to meet me there. You're just going to go straight there, all right? Or sometimes you like drive around the block and then meet me at my house. Just get to my house, all right? So there's a variety of ways to be able to show these coterminal angles. And again, there's an infinite number. This is just one that we're looking for, just one. All right. So let's look at 842 degrees. All right, again, this is going to be a little bit harder. All right, and again, we're going to move in a positive direction. So I'm going to label this with all of those positive angles. But again, 842. Now that's multiple rotations. So what I want to do is I want to start thinking about taking out different multiples of 360, because multiples of 360 tell me how many times I've gone around the circle. So again, I can unwind that or think about multiples. So I could say, what if I take away one rotation? All right, again, that's kind of hard for you to see. So we're going to have you do this on your calculator. So taking away one rotation, all right, that gets me to 482 degrees, which is still, more rotations around. So I'm going to take away another rotation. And what that does is that gets me to 122 degrees. And so what that means is that this 842 degrees is actually coterminal with 122 degrees as well, as a value around the circle that is between 0 and 360. So what has happened is, what I've really done is I've said start here, go one rotation around, that's 360. Go another rotation around, okay, that's 720. And then go to where about another 122 degrees is, and that's where you're going to terminate. All right, and so this is really what the angle looks like in standard position, where I need to show all of those full rotations to be able to get to 122. So again, starting with one rotation is 360, add another 360, and then add a little bit extra to get to the 842. The way we do that is really to unwind by taking away rotations to get to something that is in the 0 to 360 range. So this 122 degrees, that's coterminal with 842, because 122 would be just like starting here and just saying, I'm just going to go straight there. Like, I'm not even going to continue to go around, I'm just going to go straight there. All right, so that's 122 degrees. All right, so same thing, let's look at another one. All right, so like 625. Again, this is more than one rotation, so I'm going to label this again. All right, you label them whether you're in a positive or negative direction, depending on what that value is. If it's positive, we're going to label things in a positive direction. So again, let's take away a full rotation and see if we can get somewhere in between 0 and 360. And I do. This gives me 265 degrees. And so what that means is the value 625, all right, I had to go one full rotation, and then I need to continue on 265 more degrees, all right, and that right there, more or less, is 625. All right, so this is what it would look like for 625 degrees, is to go a rotation and then a little bit extra. All right, so again, this 265 degrees is a coterminal angle with the 265 is coterminal with 625, because to get to the same initial and then terminal sides, instead of going around and around, I could just go straight there once and that's it. All right, so we start and we stop in the same place. Now for the final example, let's look at something that's in a negative direction again, but is more than one rotation. All right, and so in this case, we want to be able to unwind. So before I was subtracting off rotations to unwind. Here I'm going to have to unwind, but in the other direction. So again, this is going to be negative 360. Right? And so if what I want to do is, that means I've gone around and around more rotations, but in the negative direction. So to unwind, now I need to add 360. So take that negative 792 and add 360. And I get negative 432 degrees. But again, that's something that's bigger than between 0 and 360, which means I've gone more than one rotation. I've actually gone more than two rotations. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another 360, and I get, I'm going to kind of put it down here, negative 72 degrees. All right, and so this number is somewhere between the 0 and the negative 360. And so what this means is that I went around once, all right, this one time. Then I went around again, and then I went 72 more degrees in the negative direction, which is about like right here. All right. And so that's what this angle in standard position looks like. So again, I could just straight up write negative 72 degrees is coterminal with negative 792, because I could just start here on this initial side and then just get straight to that same spot without going around and around in a circle. So if you're asked to draw an angle in standard form, this is what you're asked to do. You need to show all of the rotations and in what direction. And then you need to find a coterminal angle, which could be an angle that's between 0 and 360, 0 and negative 360, or in this case, it could be the other piece to the angle to get all the way around the circle. So if I'm going one direction, it's the other smaller little spot. So good luck to you, and keep working on trying to draw angles in standard form. And feel free to message me or send me any kind of questions that you may have additionally.